Well, Merry Christmas. Grab your eggnog, get ready, because I'm going to break down the most recent episode of Skeleton Crew. So, the family and I just finished opening up all our presents, and what is the first thing my kids want to do after the presents are all opened and everything's cleaned up? That's right, they wanted to watch the newest episode because my kids are loving the show. So, before I give you my breakdown, I think you need to hear the full episode recap as told by a 6-year-old. What happened in the Skeleton Crew episode? Can you tell me everything that happened?
Fern, Wim, Neil, and KB, they were on the starship and they went to acid, and they heard kids talking and they said no kids allowed, and then somebody in the ship said stay in the ship.
And then what happened?
And then they got dressed.
And how did the episode end?
By the guy that said stay in the ship, but they really didn't. He was almost gonna chop off Fern's head.
Oh no. How did they get away?
By this lever.
And then what happened?
Then the episode ended.
Now, there may have been some things left out from that, so we're going to go through and walk through this episode, and make sure you stay through all the way to the end, because I'm going to recap some of the things that I think are really the most important, and or the things that are giving us something to really think about.
Force will be with you.
The episode opens with Wim's dad sitting at his desk as he's trying to get some work done. He's pulled aside to meet with Neil's mom as she's imploring him to steal the barrier access code so they can send a message out through the barrier. She convinces him, hands him a little gadget that he's going to plug into his computer to try and do this, because they are seeing that there's nothing happening in way of getting their kids back. I find it interesting that the barrier can stop communications, but it's obviously not going to stop people from leaving the planet, ships coming or going, but communications, probably even like scanners, like you can't see the planet, it just looks like a nebulous cloud. So they have to use a special code to get out, but Wim's dad gets caught in the process and he is brought to Fern's mom, who is the one who is the under supervisor. So luckily enough, he doesn't get punished. We see where Fern learns her little droid tricks as her mom tells the droid to erase its memory. Of course, we go then to where we left off last episode with SM-33 shut off and now tied up on the table as they talk back and forth about what they're going to do, about who's going to turn on SM-33. And as soon as they do it, we find out that SM-33 no longer is looking to kill them, and all of a sudden is just obeying his current captain's orders. I have a theory about why this is. I don't think it's just a plot device. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt, but I'll share that at the end. SM-33 reveals that the coordinates to At-Aten are still somewhere that his old captain had hidden in his pirate's lair on Skull Mountain. We find out that this captain was a legendary captain and that the Onyx Cinder, of course, has a reputation along with it. Jod obviously is kind of captivated by all of this, and the kids are kind of like, we don't care, we just want to go home. And then we get some much needed character building for Wim. We felt like we've seen different characters develop, like Neil and Fern and KB. And so this episode gives us a look into Wim. Wim runs across over to the side. Jod comes over, recognizing that something's wrong. And we kind of get this little back and forth story where Wim is now finally truly missing his dad and his mom. But we don't really get more about that. Maybe we will in the upcoming episodes, but clearly it's kind of starting to hit him. Jod, however, then gives him kind of the worst advice you would ever give a kid, which is just forget everything. Forget all the attachments. Just let go of everything. After all, that's what I've done. This is kind of a version of Jedi have no attachments kind of mentality, which is a breadcrumb to make us think that Jod might be a Jedi, but I'm still not convinced. Jod, of course, uses the Force, and he does it multiple times in this episode, this being the first of which where he picks something up and hands it to Wim. And as they jump out of hyperspace, we're reminded that time changes everything, that the more time that goes by, everything just becomes different. And it makes me wonder if that's really what had been going on Akron. We don't get any of that in this episode, but clearly a lot of time has gone on because this once hideout for pirates has been turned into a resort for rich diplomats. So we were wrong in thinking that this was one of those other 9 planets that may have all been destroyed except for Akron, which we don't know about. But this planet clearly has a different perspective, as it's supposed to be now just this spa type resort luxury place for people to go, which is kind of comical as it plays off of SM-33 just being frustrated that everything has been changed from what he recognizes before with his old captain. With this being a resort, kids clearly aren't welcome, and they're even told that as they're flying in, and so the kids have to hide in disguises as elves, which I found somewhat hilarious, being that this was releasing on Christmas Eve into Christmas Day, and so it's very thematic for the time, and so they're all dressed up in goofy outfits that really just don't show anything. They just look kind of strange, but they kind of go for it. They don't make a big deal about it, or at least we don't see them really suspecting anything here on this planet until other people say things. He uses the Force again to get his knife back. The second time we see him using the Force in this episode. Then we come up to the front desk where they're looking for a reservation. And of course, Jod has taken all the Old Republic credits from the kids to try and buy their way through all of this. And in the middle of this conversation, Jod is interrupted by a bounty hunter who recognizes him and calls him by yet again another name. They get upstairs to their suite, and the kids do exactly what every kid does the moment they've shown up in a hotel room. They explore and get in a pillow fight. Cute and funny, and I thought it kind of fit the theme of what's been happening. But Jod is realizing the danger that is coming because of the person who recognized him. He knows that the pirates are on their way. And so that accelerates the clock for what they need to do. They need to find this lair to get the coordinates. And so SM-33 scratches the symbol that they're looking for, and they have to go searching. And eventually this search leads them down underneath the spa, kind of to a chamber where the kids befriend this squid-like creature who's eventually going to help them break open the door that's needed. And while they break apart into different teams, another team of Neil, KB, and Jod get recognized and kind of outed by the security that's going on. And we get 2 interesting moments by KB that make me think it's more than likely there's more to the Cybertronics that she has on her, because in the hotel room, and yet again while they're searching, there's this worry about steam or heat, that she can't go down into the spa for her Cybertronics might get messed up. And we see that there's like a moment where she stutters, and yet she uses that knowledge and ideas like, oh, steam can be my ally, steam can be something I can use. And to get away from the guards, she then tightens a bolt, which causes one of the pipes to burst, kind of giving the distraction that they need to get away. SM-33 shows up and says, hey, come with me. We found what we needed. They get downstairs, get into the tunnels of the lair, and they find out that everything is booby trapped. So they have to be super cautious. A kind of funny moment, kind of Indiana Jones moment where they're walking through the tunnels and they're seeing skeletons and they're realizing that there's danger. And Neil, of course, being the awkward one, steps on a booby trap, sets off this laser that would decapitate normal-sized humans, but the kids are short enough, and eventually it all brings them to a moment where they now find a dead end, and they can hear the pirates coming to get them in the tunnels behind. This acid booby trap is held with a riddle where the kids first kind of say, well, the most important thing is life, right? Well, not to pirates. The most important thing to pirates is treasure. So they take the remaining gold that they have, they chuck it into the acid pit, and it somehow releases the booby trap. Yeah, it doesn't quite make sense, but we're going to run with it. I'm not quite sure how throwing gold and acid would somehow release this booby trap other than, who knows? Anyway, they get into the main area, and as soon as they do, they step foot. You can see blaster fire coming from behind. The door is shut, and now they're trapped in this space. And Jod tells them, hey, we have to find these coordinates. It's going to be in some kind of data center, but it's going to be hidden because pirates don't trust each other. And Neil is the one who finds it, of course, looking at a table of food. He sees all the rotten food except for one thing, one kind of meat type roast on the top that isn't rotted at all. And they go to try to touch it, but they realize, oh, this is booby trapped also. So Jod reaches over, lifts it up, and it kicks on the computer where they're going to be able to get the coordinates. SM-33 does the droid thing, finds everything. Jod uses that to reactivate the acid trap, killing all of the pirates. And this is where things start to take a little bit more of a darker turn as you hear the music change a little bit, and Jod clearly is having some internal debate about what he's going to do. And as that happens, he recognizes, I've got the coordinates, the pirates are gone, I just got to get rid of these kids. And so he challenges Fern, per the pirate code, to a battle to the death to be the new captain.
I invoke my right to challenge the captain as per the code.
What?
The challenge is thrown. Hand-to-hand combat to the death.
What? 33?
I'm sorry, Captain. I must follow the pirate's code.
And this is where Wim tries to play hero. The lightsaber he had seen previously sitting on the stand while they were all searching, he goes and gets and tries to free Fern from Jod betraying them, but he has it upside down. It's kind of a hilarious moment where he turns on the saber. I laughed out loud. I thought it was silly. He almost took off his feet as he flips on the saber upside down, and he goes back and sits with the kids. Fern yields, and now the new captain is Jod, and he commands SM-33 to imprison the kids for mutiny. And then it all ends with what? Wim hitting the booby trap, them escaping, and Jod force pulling the lightsaber to his hand, and the credits roll. First, I want to talk about Jod because I think we're just being set up. I don't think he's a Jedi. If you go back through all of the times he's used the Force, it's been his left hand, and he's been using or moving metal. That's it. Whether it's magnets in his glove or some other trick, I have a feeling that this isn't actually the Force. But the show is kind of making it feel that way, right? By talking about attachments and him saying, never actually admitting that he was a Jedi, but kind of feeling there's this past behind him, that he's cut off from everyone. So that's the first thing. I also think there's more going on with KB than we really have seen. I bet we're going to see that in this next episode. We've really gotten a Neil-centric episode, a little bit of Fern and more of Wim in this episode. So I think we're going to get more of KB in the next. But there definitely is something about her headgear and cybernetics. I've said it before, I think she might be more droid than human, but we'll have to see about that. Now back to SM-33. Why did he switch all of the sudden to no longer going after the kids? You could say, well, it was just a plot device, but I think there was something more about at Akron than we were understanding, that there was something messing with his circuits that was making him revert back to old thought patterns. We even see it when he's interacting with Jod back on the ship. We see it in the camera angles and the usage when he's attacking the kids. It's meant to be disorienting, like something's going on in his circuits that aren't right, but yet they get away from the planet. When they turn him back on, he's just back to SM-33. So I think there is something about at Akron that is either set up to destroy droids, to mess with them, or something along those lines. I did make a video recently talking about the theories of why there were no droids, and I did miss the one droid in that show, the destroyed droid on the tram. So I don't know if it blows that whole theory out of the water, but there's definitely something about that planet and how it interacts with the circuits of droids. I do love the fact that we've seen an ignited lightsaber. I'm not saying that that makes everything, but the fact that now Jod, this Jedi wannabe pretender pirate, now has a lightsaber, and it was clearly in a place of reverence in the lair, so it was definitely something that was seen as valuable and important. I'm intrigued to see where that goes. How is he going to use that? What's going to happen? I think the reveal of the captain being one who is dead and gone, seeing this old kind of really crummy footage, I think there's going to be more revealed about that to come in way of what's happened on at Atten. Or we kind of got the exposition of the backstory that there was a mutiny, and there was that cute moment that that Neil was like, wait, what's a concubine again? And Jod just is like, I don't want to answer that question. Let's move on. Hilarious, because every parent has been in that situation where kids hear something and ask. And of course, my kids are like, what's a concubine? I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to, how do I explain that? Because I don't like to shy away from those. I like to have those conversations. But at the end of the day, I really enjoyed this episode. I'm worried, though, that we're not going to get enough of the mystery reveal that I want about the planets. We only have a few episodes left, and I feel like this planet, even though they ended up there, it felt more like a real, moment adventure. It felt like a purpose. They were going there because of the cave, because all of the SM-33 memory had been released from Akron and whatever that atmosphere was doing. So I think it was really well done. I think the elements that were hidden in there, like KB interacting with the steam, I think the multiple uses of the Force in this episode, quote unquote Force by Jod, are placed there for a reason. And I'm excited because I think this next episode is really going to set it. What's going to happen now? The kids are separated from SM. They don't have a ship. They've fallen into a trap somewhere. What's going to happen? This is maybe the first moment that it really feels like the kids are in actual danger, really lost, really by themselves, with no guide, with no help, and nothing. So we'll see where it goes. My kids are loving it. I'm enjoying it. I hope you are. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. Thanks for plugging in and watching this today. Again, and if you're looking for more Star Wars content, click right over here. Thanks so much. Have a Merry Christmas. And remember, the Force will be with you always.